I was with Pete Hegseth this morning, who I think is just amazing. He's thinking about this correctly and creatively. What can he do to fix this on day one? Pick good people. What orders can he do to do something as simple as building ships?
Yeah, I absolutely love Pete. And Mike Waltz is already on that. He's, an Army guy, but he realized this problem, and he's creating the Ships for America Act in Congress and now in the National Security Council. So that's a big part. They got to get Wall Street. And Wall Street money is pouring into China. It's got to be closed off and redirected into the U.S. State Department has to get involved. But what Pete Hegseth has to do first is fire these 83,000 people. Not all of them. Some of them are working on ship repair. But what you have is dozens and dozens of people who walk around in clipboards looking for DEI infractions, looking for health and safety infractions, looking for toxic chemicals inside paints. And you have state people too. California won't let the firefighting foam that we need to get our ships out and safe on the highways. So you just have to cut off these people. And what they did is every time there's a new rule change, say they want, more women bathrooms or transgender safe spaces on board an aircraft carrier, well, they make a change order. And every time you make a change order, it's like the factory in Tesla going down. And if you moved, pieces around every fifth car, it messes up the whole production line. The Ford class carrier had 16,000 change orders. This is what's slowing it down because all these bureaucrats, DEI, health and safety, some of them are weapons too, but they're all making these change orders. And every time you do it, it just sucks away time. And time is precious in manufacturing, especially heavy manufacturing.
Yeah, and again, this kind of goes down to a fundamental fault error. A first principle error in the military. What does the current military think it exists to do?
Well, they're conquest. So you have to look at the Navy versus the Army. You have to go back to Mahanian principles. This is what Teddy Roosevelt, the Great White Fleet, Teddy Roosevelt, invaded Cuba. He was a colonel, but he was really about the Navy because the Army goes and it destroys homes, it conquests, it takes over lands. So if you want to take over someone and you do an Army, what the Navy does is control trade, control choke points. And this is essential. We see absolute failure of the Navy in the Red Sea. Well, this is helping spark that inflation. Inflation's two things. One is the vast spending these Democrats are doing is absolutely ridiculous. The other is reduction of supply because the supply chains are broken. So what a Navy does is it controls shipping, it controls trade. And when the Navy has a battle out to sea, no civilians die, but you don't expend those small weapons. You can't control other countries. So the neocons do not want a Navy. They destroyed the Merchant Marine, then the Coast Guard, now the Navy, because they don't want to control trade. They want the globalists to control trade, the big ship owners in Europe, the Chinese shipping. They don't want the Navy, they don't want the Merchant Marine, they don't want U.S. Congress anywhere near this trade because 90% of all trade goes on the ocean. And especially now that Donald Trump is talking about tariffs, you see papers like Financial Times and economists going absolutely crazy on him. But they don't realize that tariffs are absolutely essential when, you have adversaries. During times of peace, you don't need tariffs. Bring on the free trade. But the enemy gets a vote. Iran, China, Russia, they aren't allowing that free trade. They aren't allowing the ships to go through the choke points, and we don't have a Navy strong enough to support it.
Really quick, Captain, what percentage of our critical infrastructure that we need, such as drones, et cetera, are made in a foreign land? Of what our military uses is not made in America. Do you have an estimation on that?
I don't have an estimation on that, but it's not only the foreign land, it's our allies. China's pulling market share away from shipbuilding, away from South Korea. It's pulling it away from Japan. And every time I watch all the House Armed Services Committee, whenever they give the Navy trouble on this and say, you're not doing good here, the Navy admirals always have the same answer. And they said, our allies are our strength. Well, where are our allies in the Red Sea? Where's Canada? You want missile defense. Those missiles come over the ocean from China and Russia. Canada does not have one single destroyer. That's why the Canadian Navy is not in the Red Sea. We need those allies to do 4%, GDP spending on defense, because the Navy's all alone, and you think, well, we got a large Navy. Well, the Chinese Navy is larger, and when you add in those allies, they don't show up. They haven't showed up in the Red Sea, and the ones that have, France and Italy, have said, we are not going under United States command. They've been their own separate, protect their own ships, because we have all these woke policies, and we're protecting everyone's ship. The Navy's protecting Russian and Chinese ships in the Red Sea right now and not protecting U.S. flag ships. And our partners are saying, this is absolutely ridiculous what Jake Sullivan is doing.